Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. Going to be a little into the toy department here this morning. A little later on in the program, we will talk to Blake Boldin. He is the director of the Drake Relays, the America's Athletic Classic, coming to Des Moines in the not too distant future. At the end of this month, we'll talk about all things Drake Relays with him. Coming up tomorrow, the Luther College baseball team will have their annual Versus Cancer game to benefit pediatric cancer. We'll discuss those efforts with Luther baseball coach Bryan Nikkel. But first things first this morning, we will get our monthly check-in with City of Decorah manager Travis Goedken. He is our leadoff hitter on Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Having our monthly conversation with the city manager of Decorah, Mr. Travis Goedken, and many issues were discussed Monday night at the Decorah City Council meeting. The budget for fiscal year 2024 was passed. And first question, Travis, now that the budget's been passed, is your ibuprofen intake going to be a little less over the next couple of weeks?
Well, one could certainly hope, Darren. But that's what I think it is, hope at this point.
As for the levy rate, what it will be in the upcoming year, how that compares to the current year, how does that all divvy out?
So the levy rate, if we focus on that, did go up. It is going up to $16.40 on the city side. Excuse me, which a couple factors play into that, including the residential rollback. That's a large consideration for us here in Decorah. SF 181, which lowered the residential rollback even further. That alone resulted in a 20 plus cent increase in the levy itself. But that doesn't always equate to the same percentage increase in the raw dollars. So while the levy is up to $16.40, it's not as drastic of an increase in raw dollars, the way property taxes work here.
And what was the levy for the current year, current fiscal year's budget?
Just shy of 16.
So, and regarding the property tax legislation at the State House, is there anything that's still in the hopper down there that could affect budgeting in fiscal year 2024?
I'm going to knock on wood and say not 24, but there are definitely a few bills down there that would make dramatic changes in 25 and moving forward. So we're keeping an eye on those. Most of those bills sit in the Senate currently, but they are tied to Ways and Means. So they could come up at any point in time, and they are funnel proof.
We haven't heard a lot about property tax legislation outside of the quote unquote correction they made from the rollback legislation from a couple of years ago. Is that maybe a sign that municipalities are getting their message to lawmakers of the concerns that you have?
I'm going to say no, because what's more likely the situation, since they are tied to Ways and Means and are funnel proof, the House and Senate both focus on more policy-based legislation that need to make it through the Senate and over to the House, or conversely, the Senate over to the House before that second funnel and through committee, because those aren't funnel proof. So if they don't make it, if those bills don't advance, then come the tail end of last week, which was the end of the second legislative funnel, those bills cannot come up again. Ways and Means, they are funnel proof. They can come up in the 11th hour.
You passed the resolution of necessity for the alley improvement project last night. How busy are you going to be working on alleys this summer?
So there are 2 blocks of alleys that'll be replaced as part of the overall street projects in Decorah here. And it's, with the alleys, it's one of those difficulties where we use funds that could otherwise be allocated towards regular city streets, and alleys are a part of our infrastructure that we do need to maintain. But certainly they don't see the same level of traffic as a regular city street. So it's all about balance, being able to maintain the infrastructure that has less use and has more private benefit to it. So that is why we do assess alley work to adjacent properties, and maybe don't see quite as large alley projects as some might want to see.
You passed the first reading of an ordinance changing up a little bit of the code when it comes to folks that don't clear their sidewalks. The way you explained it, and City Attorney Johnny Anderson explained it very well during the meeting, that the way it is written now, by the time you put a penalty on somebody that isn't clearing off their sidewalks, Mother Nature does the job for them. This, from what I understand, will allow a little bit more expedient of a process. Is that a fair synopsis of what you're doing?
Very much so, there, Darren. We had one particular property that I hope some of your listeners were some of those callers of a property over on Broadway that we battled with all winter long. And quite honestly, we're still not even fully through the municipal infraction process. And as you could about imagine, there's not any snow or ice on that sidewalk currently. So what council approved the first reading of were a number of changes within the sidewalk ordinance, mostly to bring stuff up to ADA requirements, as well as SUDAS, which is the design standard. But we are changing from that municipal infraction to a simple misdemeanor, which sounds like it sounds more harsh actually, but it's not. A simple misdemeanor is, a police officer can show up and issue a ticket. And if you want to contest, you can go ahead and take it to court and fight out in court. Otherwise, it's about $170, $175 on the high end ticket once you pay for court costs. A municipal infraction can actually be up to $750 a day that you are found in violation. So while the municipal infraction process is much lengthier, it's also costlier on the city side because we need to use the city attorney to initiate that process. The misdemeanor, we think, is going to be a much more effective route at getting those sidewalks cleared, because that's what we want to do.
And again, it's April 4th. We hope we don't deal with any snow yet, but you know what? Where we live, it's still a possibility. Remind folks what the city ordinance says when it comes to removing snow and ice from their property.
Yeah, you have 24. The long story short, you got 24 hours from the snowfall to stop to get your sidewalks cleared. And that doesn't mean 18-inch goat path, because that's all the wider your snow blower is. You need to clear the whole sidewalk.
And in goat path, are you talking greatest of all time path, or I don't know? I got to get up with the kid lingo nowadays,
Right. Well, maybe that's more the farmer, my historical background.
Fair enough. Water and sewer rates are going up a little bit more than what you were planning to go up. What's the reason behind that?
So you're right there, Darren. When we were discussing fiscal 23's budget over a year ago, council identified then that water and sewer rates had, we haven't been keeping up with the cost of infrastructure, maintaining the public infrastructure. And so there was a plan to increase water and sewer rates over 2 years at 8% and 4% each year. However, as we've all experienced with inflation where it's currently at, which actually isn't even a good adjustment for cities' cost. I mean, steel at over 30% and other construction materials at 50%, including plastic pipe. And so at the end of the day, council ended up approving an increase of the water rates at 12%, at least the first reading, and sewer rates at 6%, again, first reading, but did actually have a spreadsheet of 5 other comparables, 2 neighboring communities of Cresco and Waukon, and then Charles City, Waverly, and Independence, which are 3 we are commonly compared to. So those 5 comparables, even at the proposed increase in rates, the city of Decorah is actually still well below all those other 5. And I do encourage residents, go ahead and take a look at that spreadsheet and those comparables within the city's Dropbox, or even if you want to reach out to me and get a copy direct, that'll work as well.
And you explained this during the course of the meeting, getting an apples to apples comparison when it comes to water and sewer rates from various communities isn't exactly an easy process. Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple factors that play into that. But the most large issue is each individual system is different, so when we're looking at Waucon's wastewater treatment versus the city of Decorah's, we're a grade 4 wastewater treatment plant, which has higher costs associated with it than a grade 3. And so there's an inherent cost difference just from the system that you have. But here in Decorah, when we start looking at revenue differences, the city of Decorah bills quarterly. So that's only one other of those 5 communities does that as well. So our base rates, while they look substantially higher than the other 4, well, keep in mind, they're paying that base rate 3 times to our 1 base rate. And then when we go on the usage side, the city of Decorah bills on cubic feet per 100 cubic feet, whereas only one of those other comparables bills the same way. Everything else was per 1,000 gallons. So I had to do some math to make those adjustments. But even there, the city of Decorah also, in our base rate, we give you the first, if I remember right, it's the first 3,700 gallons free as part of that base. You don't get charged usage on that. And that's the highest of any of the other communities that include that into your base. So there's a lot of variables within it, and even billing styles, which we didn't go into great detail. Even billing styles differ from community to community.
Is that why you took algebra?
That's why I have a city and engineer on staff that can help with those numbers.
And Jeremy Brill's a pretty smart guy. I can vouch for him on that end of things. It's April. That means it's farmers market season. You approved the farmers market lease. Any changes in that this year?
Nope, no changes to the lease other than changing the dates, and away we go.
And you held a lengthy discussion on C3 and historic district zoning. Did you resolve anything, or was it just a kind of an exchange of ideas last night?
Yeah, the largest part was allowing for that discussion, exchange of ideas. No real resolution at this point. So right now I'll take it to planning and zoning at their meeting next week, and they'll kick around whether it's something they want to take up, reviewing C3 and the historic district. Whether they want to consider a new zoning classification, some kind of overlay, or if their latest review here, what was it, a little less than a year ago, if they believe that review was sufficient. So right now we'll go to P&Z and see what they have to say.
In full disclosure, for the folks that are listening on Thursday morning, we're talking about this on Tuesday morning, and coming up at noon today, you're going to have one of your first meetings regarding the Iowa State University Extension housing study that you're a part of this through the city. What are you trying to get out of the meetings that are taking place on Tuesday, or took place on Tuesday as people watch this?
Mm-hmm. So Tuesday is largely going to be a review of the housing study that's been out there that, residents, students, all hopefully are participating in. And so we can see what kind of housing stock is desired. It's a little bit more grassroots housing study than maybe what was done at the county level that included Decorah as well. But it takes it a step further as well, where this group that is meeting on Tuesday with ISU Extension Outreach, community and economic development specialists will look at city ordinances and other regulations or programs that we have in the community, or lack thereof. What programs could we consider to achieve the type of housing that came up in the survey.
And how lengthy of a process is this going to be, looking at the needs of the community, what the city can do to improve some of the housing needs of this community, and ultimately resolving some of these issues?
Mm-hmm. Resolving the issues are going to be tough. That's, we got to first figure out how we're going to try and get there. And that portion with ISU Extension Outreach, that's going to be about 3 or 4 month process with the Housing Steering Committee and working with ISU staff. So once that's concluded, hopefully we'll identify a couple different either programs that we could implement or areas of city code that might be not in line with what our residents and prospective residents are wanting to see for housing stock. But again, if we can identify that silver bullet on how to generate more affordable housing, Darren, you and I we're going to go on tour, and we're going to make a whole lot of money selling that silver bullet.
No, I'll offer to do some Zooms interviews to sell that to you, and we can partner up on that end of things. But anything we're missing? Anything else we want to pass on to the public this morning?
No, actually, I think we touched on a lot of the items there. We already talked about the legislative session and the end of the second funnel. So right now is when we do expect to see discussions on property tax reform and other ways and means files to start being discussed again. So, the next time we do this interview, it might be a very different discussion because there hasn't been much on that front in the last 30 days or so.
All right, Travis, appreciate the time, appreciate the information you provide to us each and every monthly conversation. Look forward to doing it again in May, and thanks for the time as always.
Yep, not a problem.
Travis Goedken, City Manager of the City of Decorah. Coming up this Friday, the Luther College baseball team will host their annual Versus Cancer game, and here to talk about that effort is head coach Bryan Nikkel. And Coach, I know this is something that you guys have been involved with for quite some time. How'd you eventually become involved with Versus Cancer, and tell us about the organization itself?
Yeah, originally, Darren, we got involved with Versus Cancer. A former assistant here of mine at Luther, Nick Soldano, was affected by cancer when he was at a young age and wanted to get involved with that. So he found the Versus Cancer Foundation, which is solely towards pediatric cancer. And actually, a lot of people don't know, but very, very few of the funds raised for cancer research goes towards pediatric cancer. So this is specifically for the kids. We got involved with them, and it's really spurred into something our guys look forward to. We shave our heads at the end of the game, and just kind of as a showing of faith to all those kids who were in the battle.
And tell us about your connection with a young man by the name of Lewis through this effort, and the symbiotic relationship your guys have with him and he has with your baseball team.
Yeah, it's I think it's maybe been 4 years since or 3 years, maybe 4 years since we've had Lewis around with us. So Lewis is a relative of our admin here at Kari Cook, so her cousin's son, Lewis Lechtenberg. He's had 2 bouts with cancer, and he's 2-0 versus cancer. So Lewis is a rock star. And it's been pretty special to see the perspective it's given our kids to see, our everyday lives aren't too bad, man. We have some great opportunities in front of us to be college athletes, to get up every day and to get to go to weightlifting, to get to go to practice, not have to go to practice and have to go to weightlifting. I think that's been a great perspective for us. But even just yesterday, Lewis's mom dropped him off at practice, and he came, hung out for about an hour and a half, and took some batting practice and threw some pitches to some of the guys. And I think that's been really special, where he feels comfortable around all the guys. And man, he wants to FaceTime with the guys after they graduate and see what they're up to. And it's been a really special relationship.
And continuing with Lewis Lechtenberg, the relationship he has with your pitcher, Nick Defoe, has become a pretty special one between those two. Explain that one and the connection between those two.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, Darren. It's pretty special, and I think it's really fun because nothing's been forced. It's just happened organically. And I always tell people I'm very, very fortunate to coach a lot of really great human beings here at Luther College. We've got great kids with great families. And all of our guys, I mean, obviously Nick and Lewis have formed a really special bond, but I think Lewis has a great bond with all of our guys, and he would run and jump in any one of their arms, and they would grab him and take him over the bullpen. So, he makes his rounds around the field as he did yesterday and says hi to all the guys, but it's been really special to see that. And for those guys to, maybe they had a rough game, but Lewis is in the dugout and he don't care, he just wants to come say hi and get knuckles from one of his buddies. And that's been really special.
How can folks get involved with your effort?
Yeah, they can check out our Facebook page, our Instagram, our Twitter. We've posted some links there if they want to get on and donate. Also, you can just go to the Versus Cancer website. Go ahead and give it a search. It's a great organization. We've been really, really pleased with just their involvement with the kids. It's a special organization, and it's been near and dear to our hearts. So we'd love for anybody to get involved that wants to.
How much money have you been able to raise for pediatric cancer over the years since you've been connected to this organization?
So we've been, I think, north of $25,000 over the 4 or 5 years we've been doing it. We usually hit right around 4,000 every year. So that's been pretty special to see. And we're even looking to expand that into some different ideas some of our guys have, as far as, actually once hospitals start letting people back in to visit some of the kids, that's something our guys really want to do, is go buy some toys and hand out some gas cards to some of those folks. So we're really looking forward to even getting more hands-on with this mission of Versus Cancer.
As for shaving the guys' heads, do you have one assigned barber for the team, or do you got multiple guys with the clippers? How does that work?
We usually have multiple clippers out there. There's not too long of a line to shave my head, as I'm already missing quite a bit of hair. But it's, last year Lewis wanted the guys to do mohawks, so we did mohawks for Lewis last year. We'll see this year. He's been talking about potential of mullets. Oh. So I'm not sure what all the guys think of that, but Lewis will usually try to buzz a few guys, and we'll just kind of take turns shaving each other's heads at home plate after the game and get together for a picture. But we also really, it's a fun thing to do, but we really try to talk about, hey, why are we doing this? What's the meaning behind it? And I think that's what makes it so special, is our kids, I think, seeing Lewis and being around and really get to see that meaning and that why.
And Friday afternoon's game against Simpson, I believe at 3:00 start on Friday afternoon, and that is the Versus Cancer game. Like, if folks come out to the ballpark on Friday, can they make their donations there?
Yeah, 100%. They can make their donations there. They can just come find us down in the field or anywhere. But Lewis will be throwing out the first pitch, as you said, 3 p.m. versus Simpson, right here at Luther College.
Well, and I know part of the fun is you're off to a pretty good start in American Rivers Conference play as well. Your team doing some nice things here early on. What's made on the field this a successful group to this point?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. We've been able to open up conference play very well, and I think that's a credit to playing an aggressive non-conference schedule. A lot of bus trips, a lot of travel early, but we were very well battle tested coming into conference play. We've really just started to come together a little bit and figure out how to swing the bats a little bit better and put some more balls in play. Our starting pitching is very strong for us. We feel really good about our weekend rotation, and we've got some strong arms in the back end of our bullpen as well. So I'm excited to get in the heat of it here. We got some weather going on today and tomorrow, but we'll see. Hopefully the weather breaks. We can get into a little bit of a consistent schedule and see where it takes us.
Weather in the upper Midwest trying to play baseball, always an adventure, right?
That's right. But that's what makes it fun to me. It's, you never know what's going to happen. You just got to be ready to go all the time, and hopefully we can respond well to that.
Getting back to the Versus Cancer effort, anything we're missing, anything else you want to pass on to the public, as long as you got the form?
No, just we'd love to have you out there to come, hear Lewis's story and see him and see the impact that our kids are making. And I know a term we hear a lot is quote unquote kids these days. I don't agree with that statement. We got a lot of great kids. They, I always say they play to the standard we hold them to, and we hold our kids to a really high standard, and they answer the bell on things like this. They have deep compassion and man, they love getting involved in this. And I think it's making a lasting impact on them to try to give back to those who need some help.
All right, head coach Bryan Nikkel talking about the Versus Cancer effort. Coach, thanks for the time. Thanks for what your guys are doing for kids that are dealing with pediatric cancer, and best of luck to you with this effort. Also, best of luck to you on the field this weekend as well.
Thanks, Darren. Go Norse.
Bryan Nikkel, head coach of the Luther College baseball team. The Versus Cancer game coming up Friday afternoon against the Simpson Storm at 3:00. Chatting here with Blake Boldin. He is the director of the Drake Relays, the 113th Drake Relays, coming up April 26th through the 29th in Des Moines. And Blake, I know you've had this position for 7 years. What keeps you excited? What keeps you fired up? What keeps you just so enthusiastic for the sport of track and field and bringing the world's greatest athletes to the state of Iowa?
Well, Darren, that's a great question, and it's been a terrific 7 years. I mean, I think the thing that gets me excited is I truly believe that track and field is the best sport in the world. I mean, every small town in Iowa, but every city, village in the world, it's accessible to every kid. I mean, we all have those childhood memories of, whether it's a sibling, a classmate, you could be as young as kindergarten, and it's, hey, I'm going to race you to that tree and back, or who can throw this ball farther than you, and it's those basic elements of competition that we can all identify with. And then now it's formalized at the middle school and high school level. And then it really becomes an international sport. And we welcome the world to Des Moines every April. And to see that moment where a young athlete particularly does something they've never done before, and that unbridled and unfiltered joy in that accomplishment that is the result of months of hard work and preparation and determination, to see that happen, whether it's for a winner or a personal best, those are the key elements that make track and field not just accessible to fans, but really enjoyable to even people who don't know the details of the stats and the background and the bios. You don't have to have those you don't have to have that intimacy with the sport to really, really enjoy it.
And the unique thing about the Drake Relay is obviously Iowa high school kids get the opportunity to compete, small college up to large college kids throughout the upper Midwest and around the country get to compete. You could be a high school kid warming up for your event, and 10 feet away could be an Olympic champion. Now, you just don't get that in any other sport, do you?
No, that's right. And in fact, we were just talking about that, a group of us, and how unique that is, not just in the history and the longitudinal arc of the Drake Relays. The greats in the sport of track and field in the 1960s and the 70s and on. But even now, this year, we're going to see world champions, world record holders, Olympic champions, almost literally rubbing elbows with, kids from down the street. And it's just a really special opportunity. And it's also what makes folks to come back. Last week we had a press conference with Ryan Krauser, the world record holder, 2-time Olympic champion in the men's shot put. And he talked about what makes Drake special. And it's that engagement from the fans, that they understand the sport, but more than that, they enjoy the sport. So it's a terrific event that offers opportunity for athletes around the world to come and to compete alongside Iowa high school athletes and their parents and the excited fans that come with that.
And here on the local level, there's the blue standards that you reach, and you've seen it for years. We've all seen it for years. There's something special about Drake Stadium and the blue oval that brings out the best in Iowa kids. And as of this week, already 100 kids hitting blue standards. And on April 4th, a lot of those happen indoors, but weather isn't great this time of year, but weather doesn't really seem to get in the way of Iowa kids, does it?
No, the Iowa high schoolers got a great start in the indoor season, but I've just been impressed. Meets get canceled, they get postponed. There's wind, there's rain. It's been a rough winter, and I feel like, Darren, every year we talk about this time, and we probably say the same thing. But what I see every year is Iowa high schoolers show out, and the blue standards that you referenced, they were designed intentionally based on the top 25% of the qualifiers historically in the Drake Relays. That's not top 25% in the state. That's not top 25% in America. That's the top 25% of the kids that are qualifying for the Drake Relays. And already on April 4th, as you referenced, more than 100 athletes between the boys and girls have attained one of those marks. So without doubt, it's going to be an exciting track and field meet, and without doubt, it will be one for the record books with the high schoolers performing at a very high level.
I know a couple of years ago, one event you added at the high school level was the Open Fours. I know that's an event I've had conversations with a lot of people that, yeah, we need to add that thing at Drake. What made you add that to the repertoire of events that high school kids could qualify?
Yeah, and I think in the sprints, if you're a really good 100-meter sprinter right now, certainly we already had the 100, but you also have the opportunity that if you're a really good 100, we include enough 4x1s that you really have a chance to be in the Drake relays, even if you're not one of the top 20 or 24 100-meter runners. The 4x4, we let far fewer teams in. So if you're a long sprinter or middle distance runner, there's just far fewer opportunities to qualify for the Drake relays. And the 400, the one lap race, there's symmetry there. There's so much, so many compelling storylines around the 400. You sometimes see, particularly in Iowa on the girls' side, you might see a middle distance, a 1500 or 800-meter runner go down and try and run a 400 rather than a 3K. But then you may also see a 100-meter runner or a hurdler that goes up to the 400. So it's a really compelling distance, and I think it was the right decision to offer the opportunity for those long sprinters to be celebrated at the Drake Relays.
And when you look at the college level here in the state of Iowa, obviously on the small college level, Wartburg, Loras has done. They're among the top teams in the country in Division III. And you look at what Iowa State, Drake, you and I are doing right now. Has college level track ever been this good in the state of Iowa?
Well, that's a hard thing to say. I mean, because, when you think of the, Bill Bergen at Iowa State,
Yeah.
national championship teams he coached, and when Joey Woody, who's at Iowa now, when he was at UNI, and Chris Buckman was the head coach then, they were pretty good, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, in the history of the state, when you think of Missy Buttrey and what she did at Wartburg, and some of the just incredible athletes that have come through the Iowa college system, and I mean that at every level, Division III to Division I, and when we talk about really in a very short term, Kenny Bednarik at Indian Hills Community College,
Yeah.
even the community colleges in Iowa are among the very best in the country. We really think, is this the best ever? It's debatable. It's arguable. I don't know if it's clear cut and dry that it has never been better, but it's as good as it has ever been from top to bottom.
And I was talking collectively. I know there's been some really, really highlighted teams individually over the years, but collectively, seemingly, it's just getting better and better year in and year out.
Undoubtedly. And I really think it starts at the high school level.
Yeah.
And I'd credit the Iowa Association of Track Coaches that the professionalism of coaching, when I was very fortunate to have a good high school coach who I remain close to now, but also during that era in the 90s, I went to high school in Iowa. Very commonly, it's a football coach or a coach of another sport that picks something up in the spring and coaches track, or maybe basketball or whatever it is, for the extra money and to make sure their team sport players stay fit and healthy during the spring. But that era in the state of Iowa is long gone. The Iowa Association of Track Coaches, the professionalism of that group, the education, the networking, the information sharing, the collaboration, they're all track coaches. They may also coach other sports, but they're as good as you get. And then that elevates the depth of talent for schools like Loras and Wartburg and Iowa State and Iowa to draw from locally. And then, of course, that same professionalism and education that's happening at the high school level, the college coaches are the same. I mean, the quality of coaching, and I mean that in a very technical term, and recruiting, but the technical coaching at the schools in the state of Iowa has never been better. I can say that with absolute confidence.
And of course, with the Drake Relays, the on the track activity gets going on Wednesday, but we focus on the on the track activity as media people, but it's really a week full of fun and entertainment and excitement, highlighted by what the student athletes and the athletes of the world do on the track. Touch on maybe some of those other events that are a part of the Drake Relays week in Des Moines.
Yeah, it really gets started with our first Drake Relays champions crowned on Sunday, April 23rd with the Drake Road Races, a 5K, 10K, and half marathon. We're expecting just under 3,000 people. Our sellout number this year is set at 2,800. And it's if you're up in Northeast Iowa and You may not have a reason to come down for a track meet, but you want to just be part of it and finish a race, get a medal on the blue oval. It's worth the drive, every bit of it. It's a really as far as event goes, it is as good event experience as you'll find at any event in the country in terms of a 5K, a 10K, or a half marathon. But then more than that, you get to be part of America's Athletic Classic and that celebration that we've talked about with Drake Relays champions and that history of Drake Stadium for now 113 years. And then we just keep on going. Monday night's the beautiful Bulldog. So if you're a dog lover, maybe come down for the 5K and stick around, get a hotel and stay in Des Moines for the week, because that is one that, you know, regularly gets picked up on national and international media. Just a fun event with, you know, 36 dogs dressed in costume and being celebrated, all vying for the very competitive title of most beautiful Bulldog. And then Tuesday night, we have the Grand Blue Mile, another family-friendly activity, you know, everything from balloon inflatables and face painting. And it's surrounded, you know, it's right there, presented by Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield at the doorsteps of their headquarters in the heart of downtown Des Moines. If you're a track and field fan like me, you're there for the USATF 1 mile. America's best 1 mile athletes are going to be vying for a national title. And then the event that we announced last week, an exhibition is what some people are calling it, but it's a team competition for men and women in the shot put. We have the world record holder, Ryan Krauser, going against the American record holder, Chase Ely. So it's man versus women in a team competition. A man will be paired with a woman, and then these 4 pairs will go head to head to win that evening. But both Chase has promised that she's in position to set a new American record, and Ryan, he's out to set a world record in Des Moines on Wednesday, April 26th. So that's just getting started. And then we start talking about the track meet, which will feature 14 professional events, athletes from coast to coast at the university level, including the Arkansas women who just won the NCAA indoor title and the SEC indoor title. This is Lance Harder, who he's a Hall of Fame head coach. It is his last season at the helm of the Arkansas Razorbacks. So we're really thrilled and honored to be able to host him. And of course, these Iowa high schoolers from across the state, and elementary school and master's athletes. And of the many highlights for the week, on Saturday of April 29th, we're headed toward that 57th consecutive Saturday sellout. Among the many champions that will be crowned, we will host the first ever, and not the first ever at the Drake Relays, the first ever collegiate national champion in the wheelchair 100 meters. So it's not an NCAA sanctioned event, but we've partnered with the NCAA Office of Inclusion and the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee we've set up qualifiers at different sites through the country, and these two, call them super regions. They're competing there to qualify to compete at the Drake Relays for the opportunity to be crowned a national title. So it's really a small event for us, but a huge step forward for the para inclusion movement. And we'll have literally hundreds of Drake Relays champions crowned, and those will just be 2 of them.
Well, you look back at the 2021 Tokyo Games, the 2022 World Track and Field Championships, and you look at so many of those athletes that have been on the blue oval. How much pride do we have to take in this state that there's a lot of these folks that see this as such an opportunity to get ready to compete on the world stage?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pride at every level. Pride that we get to celebrate Iowa high school athletes. It's pride that we get to see the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones take on some of the best in the country. And it's pride that we get to see in many of the races folks from Luther and Simpson and Wartburg and Loris competing alongside the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones. And then at the very high level, certainly, we have, not just in recent history, but over the long arc, the Drake Relays has established itself as a must stop for those people that if you're a professional athlete, a world champion, a world record holder, and you build your bucket list of track meets that you want to compete in, the Drake Relays is at the top of that list for every athlete in the world, and we're excited to welcome. We don't even have the final number assembled yet, Darren, but we already know we'll have. It will be 6 Olympians and probably 12 Olympic medalists, world championship medalists, and it will just be another one of these events for the record books.
And you look at what Des Moines is doing from an overall sports perspective. You guys bring it every year when it comes to the Drake Relays. You got Des Moines hosting the NCAA basketball tournament, minor league sports mecca with the Iowa Wild, the Iowa Wolves, and the Iowa Cubs. What's it like to be a part of making Iowa's capital city such a hub for athletics, really, throughout the nation?
Yeah, and we played a very significant role in that in 2018 and 2019, and you helped us promote that when we hosted the U.S. Outdoor Track and Field Championships and decided the U.S. team that went to the World Championships in 2019. And this summer, the Blue Oval is part of that again. The AAU Junior Olympics will be hosted at Drake Stadium. So, to hear you rattle off the professional sports franchises that are in Des Moines, your familiarity with the sport of track and field and the high school state meet that is such an iconic part of our city in Des Moines, it's starting to sound like you worked for our Convention and Visitors Bureau, Darren. But it is something that we're really proud of, and to work alongside, leaders like Ryan Grant at the Iowa Wolves and some of these other sports industry leaders in the city of Des Moines, to continue to distinguish ourselves as a destination, and not just in the Midwest, but from coast to coast, that we really are a place that hosts the world's best.
Anything we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on? As long as we got the conversation, Blake.
Yeah, well, today, Tuesday, April 4th, all session tickets went on sale. So if you're one of your loved ones is one of those 100 athletes that has attained a blue standard, or you want to be in Des Moines, today's the day to get those best seats. We are seeing a pretty significant demand in the pre-sale that went on last week. So we're headed toward our 57th consecutive Saturday sellout. And those tickets and the information can be found at draketix.com/Drake Relays. And of course, always our announcements and breaking news is available at drakerelays.org.
Blake, always good catching up with you. Appreciate all you do for track and field and student athletes in the state of Iowa. And for the state of Iowa, bringing a lot of people here to town. Should be a great time later this month, and you're promising great weather too, right?
Working on it. That's top of the to-do list every day. Thanks, Darren. So, and hopefully we'll see you at the state track meet.
You bet. Blake Boldin is the director of the Drake Relays, coming up April 26th through the 29th at Drake Stadium in Des Moines. Hey, thank you to the guest on the program this morning, Travis Goedken, the city manager of Decorah, Luther College baseball coach Bryan Nikkel, the annual versus cancer game for pediatric cancer research coming up tomorrow against Simpson at 3 o'clock. And I want to thank Blake Boldin. He is the director of the Drake Relays. Don't forget, we put these shows on YouTube each and every week. We realize you can't always be near a streaming device or near a radio at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, but we get to talk to interesting people week in and week out, and we want to bring that content to you on your schedule. Just go to 46 Our Town program if you're out gallivanting on YouTube, or we link these to all of our LA Communications Facebook pages as well. Our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. Thanks to our guest. And most importantly, thank you to you for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.